Hello, I'm Carl Rowland with Sherline Products. In this video, we're going to show you how to calculate how much shim stock you need to have under your headstock in order to get the center line of the headstock spindle on center line with your tool holder. So, some explanation to begin with. In the tool holder, cross slide, and saddle, we have a stack tolerance of 3 to 4 thousandths. And by stack tolerance, I mean that each of these pieces are held within 1, plus or minus, okay? So your overall height from the base to the center line of your tool holder could be plus or minus 3 or 4. On your headstock, you've got the headstock riser block and the headstock. The distance from the bottom of the headstock to the center line is held within 1. The overall thickness of the riser block is held within 1. So on this assembly, you have a stack tolerance of 2 to 3, okay? Because of this, because we knew there was a stack tolerance, we intentionally made our headstock riser block 3 to 4 thousandths undersize, okay? So then what we do is we clean it all off, we assemble our headstock, okay, and then we put an indicator in and we see how much we're off by, and then we add shim stock to the bottom, between the bottom of the riser block and the top of the base, until our height, our center line height on the headstock is within 1 thou or less of the center line of the tool post. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video. Okay, so if you buy one of these from us, the shim stock is placed between the base and the riser block, okay, because you will never take that apart. Where this video comes into play, most likely is going to be if somebody has a 3C headstock and they want one of our standard headstocks and they swap it out and find that the new headstock is now 1 thousandths lower or higher than center line on their tool post. Okay, so what we did in the video, there's 2 1/4-20 screws that come up through the bottom of the base to hold this assembly in place. Okay, we took those out to show you where the shim stock goes. So what I'm going to do is assemble this, and then we'll come back and go from there. Okay, I've secured the headstock in place with the 2 1/4-20 socketed cap screws. Okay, we're using a 1/10 test indicator. So we're going to put our 3C collet in place. Our drawbar. Okay, on your machine, this is all going to be set up and ready to go. You'll probably have a lever collet closer on it. You'll have stepper motors on it. We've got this down to the basics. So I'm using hand wheels and a drawbar, I'm sorry. So you will be using your lever collet closer most likely to close your collet, and you'll have your power on, and you will be using your jog and step mode on your control to move everything into place. So the first thing we did was we actually indicated the front of the gang tool post in, which we show in a different video. So we know that this is square. Okay, then what we're going to do, make sure everything's tight, okay, is we're going to move the tip off center a little bit, and we're going to sweep in the first hole, or it's the second hole, but you're going to get it close to it, and then with it there, you're going to go side to side and see how close you are. If you're off a little bit, then you just jog your table one way or the other until it looks like it's even. Then we're going to straighten out the indicator a little bit. Okay, and what you want to do so you don't crunch your indicator is actually hold it up with your finger and step jog into it. Okay, so right there, it actually went over the lip. My indicator is maxed out right now. It's all the way up against it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is indicate in side to side so that I'm dialed in that way first. So right now, when I go this way, I'm off quite a bit. Okay. Okay, so I'm 2 before 0 on this side, and I'm about almost 3, so I'm just going to go a little bit more. Sorry about that. And I'm going to 0 it on this side, and I should be pretty close to 0 on this side. So pretty much 0 there. Okay, so I know that I'm on center line this way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is see what it measures when it's straight down. And right now, let's make sure we're not maxed out. I actually think I'm maxed out. Yep, I'm maxed out. Okay, I have to move my indicator tip just a hair. Too much. All right, hold on. Got to move it back out. Still too much. Okay, so I'm using a mirror to see what my number is underneath. Three. Okay. Okay, so I'm going from 3 before 0 to 3 after 0, which means I have 6 thousandths difference from bottom to top. Okay, so what this means is I have to add 3,000 shim beneath the riser block and the base in order to shim my headstock assembly up. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, I've removed the 2 1/4-20 bolts that hold the headstock on. Okay, so what I want to show you is where we put the shim stock. Okay, another one, we actually have rolls of 1/2 thou to 5 thousand shim stock. Comes like this. Okay, which you're not going to have. You can pick up feeler gauge at an automotive store or online for pretty cheap. If you buy 2 of these. This one goes from 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, and 5. You'd have enough in 2 of these to get your headstock height adjusted properly. Okay, so because I had 6 thousandths difference from top to bottom, we're going to be putting 3,000 shim on here. Okay, so where the shim stock goes is the full length of your headstock on the side, on the outside, away from the head key, and then on the other side, like so, okay, and that's going to be here and here, okay? If it's not the full length, or if you have it in a different orientation, what'll happen is when you tighten the 2 screws front and back, you can get a teeter-totter effect, and you'll have it to where it's really close to being on. You'll change your shim stock, you'll put it in, and it'll be off. Especially if you start stacking shim stock. So with these feeler gauge, these guys are actually the correct length. You could use an entire feeler gauge on each side. Okay. So anyhow, that's where we put the shim stock. Okay. For you, if you don't want to disassemble your entire machine, you can do the same thing just by putting the shim stock between the headstock and the riser block. Okay, we put it here because we know that part will never be taken apart by our customer, or rarely ever. Whereas if we put it up here and you do change out your headstock and you don't position your shim stock correctly, or you lose it, then your alignment's off. So as long as this is your machine, I would put the shim stock up on top here, and again, one side here and on the outside of the headstock key, and then just put your headstock back on with the shim stock in place and lock it down with your locking screw. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put the shim stock in place and mount this, and then we'll move on to the next part of the video. Okay, I've put the shim stock in place. I have mounted the headstock back and secured the 2/4 20 screws. If you haven't moved your x-axis, okay, then you should still be aligned this way, which makes it a lot easier to get your indicator dialed in, because after taking it out and putting it back in, it has certainly moved a little bit. So again, don't want to crunch my indicator. Bring it up here. That's still kind of maxed. Yep, I'm maxed. Okay, so an easy one when you're maxed out is to turn it sideways and just jog your table into the indicator a bit so that it moves the dial. It's a more precise way of getting your dial to move, your tip to move, to get it within the full range of your indicator dial. That's still okay. Okay, so that's looking a bit better. Okay, so now we're going to go side to side. Get it dialed in side to side first. Okay, and I'm pretty much okay, so I've got 0 on one side and about half a thou. We'll go a couple tenths. Okay, so 0 and 0, and when I go to the bottom, I'm at 4 to 5 tenths. Okay, so if I go to the bottom, I'm 4 to 5 tenths, and I go to the top, and it's on the O side. Okay, so I got 4 tenths one side, 4 tenths the other side. So I'm within a thou right there. I'm within half a thou. I have 8 tenths to a thou difference from top to bottom. So a half a thou, I'm going to leave it there. If you have 1/2,000 shim stock, then you can put a half thou in there and try. The other one is sometimes if you go a full thou, you won't get a full thou difference when you actually clamp everything down. But for the accuracy that is needed for your machine, if you need it closer than that, then add more shim stock or take more shim stock away. You can get this dialed in to where it's dead on, but I'm within half a thou, so I'm going to leave it there. Some other points. Your machine is going to be fully assembled when you're doing this. If you're removing your headstock, if you've got the optical encoder, the mass optical encoder, make sure that your power is turned off. Disconnect your optical encoder with the power off, or you will damage the optical encoder, okay? So I would disconnect all the electrical to anything around here first. You obviously don't need anything live on the headstock. And then just use your jog to jog everything in. So there you have it. Thank you.